What are we discussing on today's podcast, you ask? Well, we got another crossover with Javier Reyes of Locked On Padres because, of course, it's time for a weekly crossover where we do a draft. And today we're drafting the players that we think are going to come back crashing to earth in 2024, the players we think that are going to regress the most next season, breaking it all down on today's Locked On Diamondbacks crossover.
You are Locked On Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, listening to who? The always charismatic host of this podcast, Miller Thomas. Catch me on Twitter at Thomas24 for the personal account. Look up Locked On Diamondbacks, both Twitter, Instagram for the podcast handle. Please hit subscribe on the Locked On Diamondbacks YouTube channel, and we're of course streaming on all podcasting platforms. So please, thank you for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen every day. But without further ado, let's bring on the man of the hour to do our weekly draft as we do every Tuesday. We get together, drop this podcast on Little Wednesday. And this week, we got to do a little draft for players coming back to earth in 2024. And the man to draft those guys is Javier Reyes of Locked On Padres. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right. Look, the people, they know. They know that your boy has been upset lately. He has not had a fun time talking about recent Padres events, but alas, here we are, the reprieve. Because you're just like, it's not easy for you right now because you're in the middle of a playoff race.
Yeah,
but at least there's like life. There's like life. There's energy. There's sustenance. There's reason to live. While for me, it is just like the Tartarus pit. It is the worst. It is the bad place. For us out here. So I'm happy to be talking with you, sir, because hopefully, although I don't, every time I think that we're not going to talk about the Padres somehow, it still comes up somehow, but maybe I won't have to get upset because I've got some comments, man. I've been raging lately. I think I finally snapped. Yeah.
The Joker finally snapped over there, getting a little psychotic. Is this actually how the Joker origin story is born after a year where you have the arguably highest payroll? I don't know where you guys actually ranking the payroll, but one of the highest payrolls in baseball, number 3. Huge expectations, and it just all comes crashing back to earth this season. Is this the actual Javier Joker origin story? I guess stay tuned to see. But D-backs right now, like you said, we're actually playing with the most dangerous thing you can in sports. We're playing with he still got the little
I still got the hat, man.
But the D-backs playing with the most dangerous thing in sports right now. Hope in a week we could either be locked into that new number 2 wild card spot and go on to Philadelphia for the playoffs, or we could be sitting at home and I could just be here talking with you, Javi, doing another draft and say, you know what, let's not even look at the playoffs. Let's just act like the playoffs are going on. Let's do another fun draft. So a lot of nerves on the line right now. But like you said, there still might be a way for us to work in a little Padres talk, because today we're drafting the players that we think are going to regress, come back to earth, come crashing back to earth in 2024. These are the players that we think are just playing way over their expectations, way over their head and talent level this season. And as we do before every draft, I got a coin here. And I believe Javi loves to pick tails because tails never fail. So I'm going to flip the coin for the number 1 pick in the draft. A little flip, and as we see, it is tails for Javier Reyes. So he will get the first pick in our regression draft for 2024. So Javi, how do you want to start us off?
I'm going to start us off by going against what I spent about a minute lambasting against, and I'm going to pick a Padre. And I'm going to be mean. I'm going to be spicy. Are you ready for this?
Oh, God.
Your 2023 Cy Young winner, Blake Snell, come on down.
Man, this is actually a perfect take. Actually, you got the perfect player for this draft. I'm actually so jealous.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. I'm a hater. The Joker's coming out of me. I'm picking my own player, the only friggin' dude who showed up for this stupid team this year, Blake Snell. For the record, regression, I'm picking him first because I just think we see this happen, the first year of a big contract. We've seen it happen a lot. Robbie Ray regressed mightily. No, I don't want to say mightily, but That's what I would expect. Robbie Ray, his first year with the Mariners, was a solid starter who was about as good as you and I if it was against the Astros. But against every other team, he was like a pretty solid starter. I think he still breached like 200 Ks. But for me, I just look at just basic numbers and the fact that it's pretty rare. I talked about this with my buddy Colby on yesterday's episode for my feed, where we talked about like basically Blake Snell has the highest walk rate in a single season since 2000. And that's really like, that's kind of crazy. So I'm basically just saying that all the stuff is great, but I just don't think he's going to be able to replicate this. And he has been an up and down pitcher in his career. He's still going to be good. Whoever gets him, congrats. I think it's going to be awesome for you. I think you're going to have a lot of fun. Maybe Boston's a destination. Maybe the Mets. Who knows, right? Like there's totally like so many places he could go. But the walk rate combined with the Padres having a really good defense behind him lends credence to maybe he got a little bit lucky. And he's been inefficient and more so inconsistent before in his career. So I think that it's very likely that he does that. But it could be like Robbie Ray, where he's still an effective starter, still a guy that you could trust in the right situations. Just not quite this guy, doing no Jacob deGrom back-to-back type of stuff. I just think that the walk rate is just a little crazy for you to be able to consistently strike out that many guys no matter what. It's an amazing season. It's one of the more fascinating Cy Young seasons in a while, but I think he's a regression candidate.
I love that pick. I think he's probably the definition of who you should pick in this draft because this is someone who we saw win the Cy Young back in 2018, and the very next season, only 100 innings pitch, ERA north of 4. So this is someone who we've seen have that phenomenal, magical season and then immediately regress the next season after. Like you said, he's kind of been an up and down pitcher throughout his career. Got a little Aaron Nola in him where it's like every other season he might be dynamite. Blake Snell is going to be one of the most interesting free agents on the market. Want to see how much money he commands. Going to be like 31 years old at the time of his next contract. So want to see how that affects Blake Snell. Yeah, Blake Snell, I wonder if he's going to be like a 20, because someone that's going to be 31 years old, I wonder if someone's going to want to pony up like 5 years, $100 million for him, give him $20 million annually. So I love him as that number one pick in this draft. I think he's the definition of who should be in this draft. But for me, if I had that number one pick, I might have picked the Padres too, and it might not have been Blake Snell. But since you went with a Padres to start, I'm going to hold off on my guy, keep him in the back pocket, maybe for later draft. I'm gonna go with a little firepower. Since you started off with some firepower, I'm gonna start off with a firepower as well. Maybe some people would think this is kind of crazy, but the archetype of those big time power bats that really don't hit for average, those guys that strike out a ton, those Adam Dunn, Chris Davis types, the Joey Gallo types, I think as those guys age, those guys really struggle in Major League Baseball. And I think the perfect candidate that we could see fit this archetype next is a dude who's playing in Philadelphia right now, a little Kyle Schwarber action.
Okay.
Insane because Schwarber the last couple years has like 90 home runs total the last 2 years, but he's one of those guys when those home run totals start dipping down to like the mid 30s, you start dipping down to the mid 20s, you look at his batting average, he's below 200 this season, has been going in the wrong direction the last few years. The strikeout totals keep going up, has led the league in strikeouts the last couple years, and I just think he's the kind of guy where if that home run power outage just slips a little bit, he just turns into another Chris Davis, Adam Dunn late in your career where it's like he's batting 180. You're basically hoping for a home run or bust. And if he doesn't get that, what does he really provide you offensively? Kyle Schwarber, I think, could fit the mode of the kind of guy that could be a power bat that you like in his prime, but as he gets older, kind of struggles and falls off kind of quickly too.
Yeah, I mean, he's another one who were like it's in a similar way where Snell is having a very unique like Cy Young season because he walks everybody and like is somehow managing to strike them out still. Like that's just not what you usually get at your Cy Young winners. They're gonna keep the walks down because walks are bad. Kyle Schwarber, despite hitting, I think still under 200, if I'm not mistaken, has like still been like a mightily effective bat, which I think makes him like really fun. To be quite frank, like I just think he's been one of the more fun players. The fact that this guy is hitting, just to check, he's hitting 197 on the year is part of that. The BABIP, he's got 212 BABIP. Sure, I mean, part of me is like it has to be unlucky if you're hitting below 200 and you're hitting for that much power and your WRC plus is good and all that. But to have 45 bobs, it's just fun. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like you turn on your TV and you're basically like, it's Joey Gallo baseball, right? Where you're just home run, walk, or strikeout, and it's entertaining in a way, and also
he's good,
horrific defender. But nonetheless, he's been a good player this year. But I see what you're talking about. I think the Chris Davis comp is great, actually, where it's just like maybe to throw out a Philly like a Ryan Howard a little bit. Granted, Howard's I think drop off was a little more precipitous, but with Chris Davis, it was just like, wow, yeah, throw that guy anything faster than 92 and he's cooked now. You know what I mean? Like, it was too much. So I think that's a savvy pick, an interesting one. I'm surprised you took it first, though. That's all. I thought there were some other guys you might take.
That was trying to go a little bit juicy with it. And I also just think when you look at the mold of those players, I think the bottom falls out quicker than we realize. Like, Chris Davis went from MVP to like out the league, it felt like, in 2 years. I think a lot of those guys, the drop off just happened so quick. So for Kyle Schwarber, I don't know if it'll be a gradual decline as we see some other major leaguers have. But Javi, I guess we could get to you for one more pick before we get into a little ad read here.
Should we, though? Because I do talk a lot.
Okay, you know what? You convinced me. You will do a 5-minute monologue on your pick. So you know what? Let me just talk to the listeners real quick. Let me see the first ad read that got pulled up here. I know what I want to talk to our listeners about. In case you need a little help with the scalp, look at my man Javi. He don't need no help. He's got a great head of hair. But if you don't have a head of hair like Javi, you need a little help. Don't be afraid to use Nutrafol. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement, clinically shown to improve your hair growth, visible thickness, and visible scalp coverage. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements use physician formulated, natural science-backed ingredients. Their drug-free patented technology provides consistent, reliable results without compromising your sexual health. Go to Nutrafol.com/men to take their hair health wellness quiz, identify causes of your thinning hair, and Nutrafol will give you a personalized plan for better hair health through whole body wellness. Take the first step to visibly thicker, healthier hair. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/men and enter the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Find out why over 4,000 healthcare professionals recommended Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com/men, spelled Nutrafole. There's no E, actually. FOL.com/men and enter promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's Nutrafol.com/men, promo code LOCKEDONMLB. And don't forget to catch every D-backs and Padres pitch on their hometown broadcast when you download the Sirius XM app and either search up Diamondbacks or Padres. Back here on the Locked on Diamondbacks crossover, doing a little draft of players that we think are going to regress heavily next season. And Javi's up with the #3 pick. Blake Snell went #1, Kyle Schwarber #2, #3. Javi, who do you have?
With my next pick, I think once again I'm going to be a jerk. Okay. That's what I've decided. I'm going to pick Luis Reyes of the Miami Marlins because I'm a jerk. I'm a jerk. What do you want from me? I'm in a mood today. You know what I mean? I'm in a mood. The Padres got me annoyed, so I'm going to be mean. I'm going to keep it simple. I just think it's rare that guys are able to hit like this. And what I mean by that is not necessarily just good, but just to the degree of being a 400 batting average guy. That's all. It's really just based on me looking at history and saying, I remember D. Gordon was a guy who was just like all slap, infield hits and, getting them out of the infield and singles and that. And then he regressed to the point where he became a little bit below average because so much of this relies on such a high volume of batting average and whatnot. He's still been great. I wish that he was a better defensive player, because then he would truly be one of the best players in the league if that was the case. But I'm just saying, he's hitting 353. I think it goes down a little bit. I don't feel great about it, but if he becomes like a 297 hitter, I don't think that would surprise anybody. And I think that would be a little bit of a regression. I don't feel great about the pick, but I'm a jerk. So what do you want from me?
No, I think it's actually a great pick because he's so heavily tied to the batting average. It's true. If he becomes a
Mhm.
290 hitter, it's not like he provides you a lot of power. He's not much of a slugger. It's not like he's a
Mhm.
base stealer, at least like a D Gordon. So if he's a 290 hitter, it's a lot. It's going to be a lot of singles and maybe he's going to have some doubles mixed in as well there. But it's not like this dude is crushing it in terms of power. He's got some doubles, but the over the fence stuff, he's not like a over the top base runner. And even with a 350 average, an 860 OPS is not super high for someone that's leading the league in average by that big of a margin. So I think this guy, if he does bat 290, I think all of his numbers will probably take a pretty precipitous drop as well. So again, I think Javi, this might be the regression draft might be the draft for Javi because I think you're crushing it. Your first 2 picks so far. I'm honestly extremely jealous because my next pick is not going to be as fun as that one. But I'm just going with a guy who I just don't think is very good, even though if you look at WAR, he's pretty high. Look at WRC plus is pretty high, but his peripheral, like just traditional numbers, are just kind of underwhelming. And this is someone who was a top prospect who's been struggling for years, playing for the Seattle Mariners. I'm going with JP Crawford here.
Mm.
This is
Mhm.
not the sexiest of names. Like you just had Blake Snell, I had Kyle Schwarber. You took another sexy guy here in Luis Ariz. But JP Crawford is just someone, when we look at the advanced numbers, they try to tell you that he's like a top 20 player, like Major League Baseball, like WRC plus. I think he's like top 17. WAR he's pretty high as well. And a lot of it just because of what he could do defensively, which is impressive. I'll give him that. But it's like, I look at the traditional numbers, they're just kind of mid. I've seen him the last few years just struggle at the plate offensively. And now all of a sudden we're just supposed to say this is one of the best second basemen, one of the best middle infielders in all of baseball. I don't think so. And maybe he regresses a little bit next year, but I just think the whole idea that JP Crawford has now entered a new tier of major leaguer, I just don't think that's the case. And that's why I'm taking him in this regression draft.
And it's weird because he was primarily known as like a glove first guy for a little bit, and then he regressed defensively in exchange for offense. And what also sticks is he has such good vibes. If you ever see him, if you see videos of him, really good vibes player, seems like a great clubhouse guy. So I like JP Crawford. That Mariners team in general has a lot of good vibes, but I agree, man. This was my next pick.
Really?
For
Okay.
sure. Yeah, I actually debated about taking him over Arise but I just thought that Arise would be meaner. So I decided to do that one. JP Crawford, his WRC plus over the years, since 2017. This year it's a 131. Last year, 103. Before that, 103. Then 95, 87, 95, 83. Totally a good bet to be like, this guy's just having that one good year. We saw Adam Frazier a couple years ago have that 1 year where it worked out. And it wasn't even a full season. It was just the one first half when he was an all-star for the Pirates, and nothing mightily seems to have changed. I haven't seen like the in-depth stats. I don't know if his hard hit rate spiked this year or anything like that. And it's totally possible that both him and Arise, they're not old. That's one thing going for them. So it's like, maybe this is who they're going to be from now on. That's totally possible. We've seen that happen where guys figure it out a little bit later than other people. They get a little bit more playing time, and that's who they become. Daniel Murphy, if you remember him, like I remember that guy was just a solid second baseman and then became like an MVP candidate when he went to the Nationals. It was like really good for a couple years there. So totally possible, but I'm with you. I'm with you on this one.
Thank you. I appreciate that. JP Crawford, I didn't think he was going to go next I didn't think you would take him next if I didn't take him right there. He's not the sexiest name, but I just think he perfectly fits the mold of someone who I don't think is very good, but all the advanced numbers say, you know what, maybe this is a top 15, 20 player in Major League Baseball. And I just don't buy it. That's when I disagree with the advanced analytics. That's when I'm back on my old man traditional stats BS. But Javi, who do you have next in this draft?
For my next pick, this one isn't as mean. In fact, I think people like that I'm being mean to this team because people haven't gotten off their high horse since 2017. But I'm taking Framber Valdez of the Houston Astros. Ladies and gentlemen, oh yeah, it's a spicy. I'm just taking nothing but spice today because I'm mean. And I hope someone, if anyone watches this, gets mad and clips it. Go ahead. You think you can phase me at this point? My pitcher quit on my team yesterday. You think we have like every think piece is coming out about us. Nothing can harm me. That being said, Framber Valdez is just a me thing. This is mostly just a feeling. He's so fun to watch. Really good pitcher, really clutch pitcher. He's had a lot of big playoff performances. Notably, I believe the no-hitter a couple of years ago in the World Series or whenever the heck it was. Like he's great. Or it was Christian Javier, one of the two. For me, I just think it's fundamentally, I think that it's if you have to bet on a pitcher to regress, you bet on the one that relies on, or I should say, more relies on weak contact and ground balls. which has been mostly what Framber Valdez is known for. 24.6% strikeout rate. He's got one of the highest ground ball rates among starting pitcher. That's how he pitches. But also, I'm thinking of someone like Kyle Hendricks. Kyle Hendricks was unbelievably good, Miller, for a long time with the Cubs. He had like a 4-year stretch where he was just consistently underrated. You play fantasy baseball, he was that guy that you could always get like 4 rounds later than you probably should have, because he didn't get that many strikeouts. And then finally it snapped. I'm not saying it will happen, but it's just a bet feeling thing saying, I think that a guy who doesn't get enough strikeouts like this, maybe he's going to regress, especially if he just keeps doing this. At some point he won't. At least that's just what my theory is. And if he doesn't, it probably won't even matter, because unlike the Padres, they will actually find a way to develop talent, and they'll find a way to have someone get better. So this isn't a shot at the Astros. It's just bold prediction, dare I say.
I like the prediction. I like the take. I don't know if I would agree, but I like the way you sold it to me for sure, because I just hate ground ball heavy pitchers that have to pitch to contact. I hate those old school. Yeah, let me get a sinker ball pitcher who's going to give up 80% contact. Let's hope we have an elite defense so they can make the outs for the pitcher. I just think those guys, you're just never going to have a high ceiling with those kind of guys. Framber Valdez is a little bit different. He's elite. I mean, 2 years straight, he's going to lead the American League in shutouts. So maybe this is a good take for a couple years from now, but I like the whole delivery of what you just did. I like the stats and the reasoning behind why you took Framber Valdez here, even though I don't know if I would take him this early in the draft, but I do like the juiciness of a Valdez. That's one where you're really putting your name onto a real bold take there, Javier Reyes. So I like what you did there, getting a little bit bold in this draft. So how do I want to match your boldness here? Probably not going to go as crazy as a Framber Valdez, but this is someone who is having himself a bounce back season after struggling last year. I think we saw what this regression would look like for this guy based off the season he had in 2022. I'm talking about Max Muncy of the LA Dodgers, who last season, that's right. Last season we saw him below 200 average, 713 OPS, 21 home runs. And it's like, this guy's not that old. He's like 31 years old. What happened? This season, major bounce back, 36 home runs, over 800 OPS. But once again, averages 215. And like I was saying earlier with Kyle Schwarber, they could just apply that all to Max Muncy. That average comes down just a little bit more. All of a sudden, that home run total's back in the mid-20s. Like, I just think Max Muncy, where he is right now, if you get this player right now, again, next season, then yeah, it's a quality at bat. But if that power tails off just a little bit, those strikeouts go up a little bit more. You see that the power outage come down just a ton. Or excuse me, just a little bit. The batting average come down just a little bit. I just think Max Muncy will end up being more of an albatross than helping your current lineup if he continues on this current trajectory that he's on. I'm not saying he's there just yet, but with what you've seen from him, if you just look at 2 of his last 4 years, he's been a below 200 average guy, below an 800 OPS guy. I just don't know if the power's not there anymore, what he can do for you in your lineup. So I think Max Muncy, kind of like Kyle Schwarber, can be in that mode. If that power starts to dip a little bit, I kind of wonder how he could help you out in your lineup still.
Wow. I didn't see it coming. I really didn't. I like the pick. Why not? Heck yeah. I'll always accept the Dodger regressing. But it's a little bit similar, almost like with the, like it's exactly like it's similar also almost to the Schwarber vibe, where it's like this guy isn't hitting enough with average, and I mean, he's got a decent on base percentage at 333, but it's like so much of it is counting on home runs. It's just, if like you said, it feels rare that everything, if he's a 250 hitter, all right, but you're 200, you're below 200, then I'm like, how much can you sustain? How much is the home run fly ball rate going to keep up with it? Right. So I think it's a pretty interesting pick. And honestly, I don't think anyone's talking about it. Like, I haven't seen anyone mention this at all from the research I was doing. So I'm intrigued, man. I'm intrigued. I like it.
Yeah, I came up with that one myself. You know, what can I say? A little pat on the back to Millie there for just knowing ball. I mean, what can I say? I just know ball. But before we continue this draft, Javier Reyes, I first, the Muncy's getting a little bit older. He might have some medical issues. I don't know, with older players. But if you do have any medical issues, you need some life-saving antibiotics, the place you want to go for that is Jace Medical, because Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jace Medical offers the Jace case. The Jace case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you a peace of mind so that you're not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jace Medical makes sure you have the medication in hand. Jace Medical is simple. They handle everything from online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. Get $20 off on these life-saving antibiotics today from Jace Medical by using my code locked on at checkout on jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com and use promo code locked on. And don't forget to catch every D-backs pitch on their hometown broadcast when you download the Sirius XM app and search up Diamondbacks. And you can also do the same for the San Diego Padres. All right, back here on the regression draft with Locked On Padres host Javier Reyes. So far, Javi had the number 1 pick, and it went Snell, Schwarber, Luis Reyes, J.P. Crawford, Framber Valdez, Max Muncy now up with the number 7 pick. Oh, is he okay? Javier Reyes. Who's up next?
Yeah, for those who don't know, still dealing with my cough, but thankfully it's like, when like you get to the point where your cough is like, it's just a nuisance.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It doesn't hurt anymore.
Yeah,
it's like I'm totally fine. Like I feel no, because there was a point when, man, it was like, oh no, I want to like stop myself, right? But anyway, before we get too gross, speaking of gross, actually, for some, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but some people would say that this man's beard and facial hair is a little bit too much. Okay. Some might say that. Some might say it's you could equate it to the Johnny Damon days. I am also going to pick a Philly, which you took a few picks ago, and I was surprised that you didn't go with this one necessarily. I'm going with the guy that some people make memes of and call him that he looks like Jesus. Brandon Marsh of the Philadelphia Phillies, outfielder. Not necessarily a household name. He's having a good season. And fun fact, this guy was on the Angels, and they really could have used him, and they just traded him despite him being like a young draft picked guy. I haven't heard anyone talk about this mode. I don't know why they traded Brandon Marsh. Like, it doesn't make any sense. But anyway, Brandon Marsh to me has never stuck out. I'm sorry. Has never struck. He's certainly struck out. He's never stuck out to me as a guy who's like an above average offensive player. And this year, that first year with the Angels, he was, mostly just a defensive guy. For the most part, 85 WRC plus. He didn't do much at the plate. 35% strikeout rate wasn't great. Then he goes to the minors, gets traded to the Phillies, and all of a sudden he's a 275, 370, 442 slash line guy with a WRC plus of 120. And to me, on top of that being just a little bit too much and feeling like that's just a little bit too early for this guy to make a leap like that, in my opinion, and I don't remember hearing vibes like this was the type of upside he had with his bat. Don't get me wrong, minor leagues show that he can be a guy that gets on base, that he can walk. But for me, on top of all those reasons I mentioned, the other thing for me, 30.8% strikeout rate and a 399 BABIP. So he's striking out 30% of the time, and he's got a 399 BABIP. That's really high. And I know that he is a guy that has a decent amount of speed, but 399, that always is going to be a thing where I look at that and say, maybe you're getting a little bit lucky and that all of your ground balls, everything you put into play, for those who don't know, it's batting average on balls in play. That's just a little bit too high for me. Unless you're prime Ichiro Suzuki, I'm not going to really trust usually stuff like that, especially given his strikeout rate, for you to just always, every time you put the ball in play, it was a hit. I don't totally believe it. I think he's more of like a 230, 340 on base guy who plays decent defense, if anything. So that's what I'm expecting next year.
And I love drafting anyone who just doesn't put up big peripheral numbers. I don't care about advanced stats sometimes. Sometimes just like, what's your production? Are you putting up ribbies, home runs, stolen bases, runs scored? And Brandon Marsh just don't do none of that, okay? He could be a Jackie Bradley type. Remember Jackie Bradley, that one all-star season he had? But
yes, like great comp, yeah.
Everyone's like, he's not that good of an offensive player, really. I know he's having a great season right now, but he can't really do much from you in any offensive standpoint. And that's kind of the same with Brandon Marsh. Good defensive player, but can he steal a base for me? Oh, all right, kind of. And he hit a home run every now and then, but it's like I can't trust him really to come through in a big moment, deliver a clutch hit. And it's like, what can he really do for me offensively? More of a defensive player, one of those Aaron Hick, Jackie Bradley types. I'm not a big fan of those guys. I need someone. at least give me like a Joey Gallo type. At least I know you can hit home runs or something. At least give me a Nico Horner who I know you can steal bases or like an Esteury Ruiz. Just give me a skill that you have that I know can translate for me in my offense. I don't know if Brandon Marsh has that. So I love that pick right here at number 7. For me, I have 2 picks left. I don't know how crazy I want to get, how spicy I want to get. I think we should get pretty spicy here because why not do it for the content? Javier Reyes. I'm going to pick a guy who's actually having a monster bounce back season right now. But the last 3 years, we've seen this guy we were like, is this guy done? Is he going to be out of Major League Baseball? This was a starlight, a future star in the making for the LA Dodgers when he won MVP back in 2019, but 2020, 2021, and 2022, we saw 3 straight seasons where this guy was not really that good of an offensive player. He could still do some things defensively, but it's like, what happened to this man's confidence at the plate? It goes to Chicago. It's been a whole turnaround, complete 180 for his career. By why not bet on a regression after he gets a little money in his pocket? Maybe he's playing for the bag because of the contract year, and then he comes back, gets paid, and then it all wipes away. I'm talking about Cody Bellinger. The magic is here for now because he's got something to play for. But when he has that security, Javi, when he knows the check is going to clear every 2 weeks, that Friday, that deposits hitting that Wells Fargo bank account or PNC Bank, I don't know what he uses, maybe an offshore account. Once that bank clears, that check clears, is Cody Bellinger still going to be playing with the same passion and fire? We haven't seen it the last 3 years, but we see it this year. I don't know. Maybe Cody Bellinger is officially back, but if you told me, look at the sample size from the last 4 years, what's the bigger outlier? His 2023 season or what we saw from 2020 to 2022? I don't know. I'll let you be the judge. I'm talking to the lockdown listeners out there.
I have to admit, I disagree, man. I really do. I think this is a guy who was a top-level prospect when he came up. He was Rookie of the Year. Then he had a regression season where he still managed to hit 25 home runs and put up a 120 WRC+. Then he wins the MVP the next year. Then he's, and granted, 2020 is small sample size. Then he has 2 really bad seasons, and then he's great this year. I just feel like no, I know, but I'm just saying, that, like, for me, he's not doing that. I think that for me, it's like, we've literally seen him be an MVP. So why not do it again? It's not like he's too old. He's not. He's still just 27 years old. So I really disagree with this one. I think that he's going to be fine. Could he regress? Sure. But to me, I don't think that his numbers that he's been doing this year, maybe the average goes a little bit down, but a 130 WRC+ guy, it's not like he's got 180 and that he's had an even better season than his MVP year. But because to me, we've seen him do it before. And also the reason he was bad, partially due to injury. So that's my thing. So I disagree with that one, but
that's fair.
Then again, you dominate every year in fantasy baseball against me. So maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, and maybe you do.
Yeah, because lane drafts, you got to swing for upside. And who has more upside to regress mightily next season than a guy who's regressed and been bad 3 of the last 4 years? Then all of a sudden, back again with an MVP under his belt already. Everyone wants to crown this guy as maybe the premier free agent entering the season, and he might get himself a major bag. I just don't know what that's going to look like. And hopefully, I don't even believe this take myself entirely. I'm not even really saying he's going to be bad next year. I just think in a regression draft, the value is too good on a Cody Bellinger here. So I'm taking him with my pick. Who do you have for your last pick, Javi?
Part of me wants to just pick the entire Baltimore Orioles roster, and just as a team, somehow having their best WRC player being Ryan O'Hearn with 128. And despite the fact that they don't have anyone above 126, which is just crazy to me, and the fact that they had no real starting pitching to speak of, and the fact that they were just unbelievably clutch, I would pick the entirety of the Baltimore Orioles. But instead, I'm going to cheat and say the entirety of the damn bullpen. I can't choose which one, but for you to have a bullpen this clutch, relievers are so volatile. I'll throw out one. Let's say Yennier Cano. He has currently, let me just see if I get this right. He's got a 2.17 ERA on the season. I think their relievers are good, but for you to have no starting pitching and have your relievers just carry you basically the whole way, I'm just picking the bullpen. I just don't think bullpens translate oftentimes year to year. I think they're extremely volatile. There's another player I could have picked on here, Kyle Bradish, the starting pitcher for the Orioles, who was got really better as time went on. He's rocking a 3 ERA now. Just really great stuff from him, and from a guy who's never really shown that he can do anything like this for the most part. So that's a regression candidate. But for me, I'm going to be a jerk and cheat and say the entire Orioles bullpen because I'm a hater. And I don't like that the Orioles are basically the bizarre world Padres where their players actually knew how to step up in big moments and not turn into a frog. So.
Man, Javi being a little bit of a hater here. I kind of have the same feeling though with the Tampa Bay Rays as like a team that I'm like I could pick so many.
But we always do. We always do on the Rays though.
That's the thing. I'm like half these players. I'm like, do I really believe Zach Eflin, the most coveted pitching free agent from this past year, do I think he's going to be good again next year? I don't know. The Yandy Diaz's, the Isaac Paredes, the Josh Lowe's, they just have so many guys who are just having breakout seasons. I don't know how translatable it's going to be for next year. But spoiler alert, I'm not going to pick any Tampa Bay Ray here. Let me write down Baltimore Orioles bullpen. All right. Javi's last pick. My last pick. I went with one spicy player with Cody Bellinger. I think I have to get spicy once again because you got to do it for the content. I said I was going to be holding a San Diego Padre player in my back pocket. And why not take the player who, if you look at WAR for position players on Baseball Reference, he's 10th right now among all players, I believe, in Major League Baseball. And I don't know if he's a top 10 position player in Major League Baseball. I'm talking about Ha-Sing Kim of the San Diego Padres, who's having himself a really strong season for the Padres. But when you get all those players, the Machados, the Tatises, the Sotos, that would probably actually help out Kim even more for next season. But do I believe Kim once again can go into next season and be a near 40 stolen base guy, near 20 home runs, have one of the best WARs in all of baseball? I think the defense is still going to be there, but this dude was just so clutch throughout the season. I can remember times off the top of my head where he single-handedly killed the D-backs late in games and won them a couple games against the D-backs this season. So Ha-Sing Kim, I just think when you look at the advanced numbers, it tells you he's one of the best players in Major League Baseball this year. I think he has been probably the best San Diego position player this year. But I think another season can pass where Kim is the best position player on the Padres. I think part of it's going to be because the stars are going to step up finally for the Padres, but also because Kim is just going to regress a little bit in 2024. I also don't know if you're there, Javi. Did you freeze on me?
Oh, I'm here.
Okay. I thought you. That was actually beautiful. I'm not gonna lie to you. I actually thought you were frozen this whole time until you said I'm here. That was actually the best, like not moving or blinking I've ever seen of all time. I prop to you. I need everyone who's listening to the audio right now. I swear to God, the whole time I was doing this, I thought this stream was crazy. That was amazing by you.
I'm flabbergasted by this pick.
Like
I feel betrayed. I feel insulted. I feel just flat out wronged. I feel disheartened by this pick by you. This is a guy who has only gotten better. Ha-Sing Kim is a hero. He's a superhero. He's a hero of the KBO. This is a guy who's hit for power before. He's a great defensive player. I think that this is mean. I think this is mean. And I don't appreciate it. Did you see me picking any D-backs players? No. Could I have picked Lourdes Gurriel? Could I have picked your boy Corbin Carroll? I could have done that.
Could have.
You know? I could have. He said I could have.
Maybe you should have. I don't know. Maybe if I won the number one pick, Kim might have been first in this draft. You started with a Padre, so I didn't want to go Padre start the draft, you know? Kim, I just think potentially. Who knows? I like him though. He was really good this season for the Padres. But maybe not next season. Who knows, Javi? Hey, any honorable mentions? I know there was a guy you thought about taking with your last pick, but instead you took the Baltimore bullpen.
Yeah, I took the entire Baltimore bullpen. Michael Lorenzen, currently of the Phillies.
Oh, okay.
Just feels like that classic 1 year. And not that he's a bad pitcher, but I just think he outperformed his peripherals, got a little bit lucky. I could see him regressing. Not that that's a bad thing. I think he's fine. Part of me was tempted to say my boy, George Springer. I love Springer. Okay. He hasn't actually been that great this year, but I was almost going to say I think it's going to get bad for him next year. I think that the injuries have mounted up on him, and I'm worried. I'm worried that finally when he was healthy for the majority of this year was when he started to struggle. So that tells me maybe he's weighing down, big contract, all that stuff. So he's one up there. Already mentioned Kyle Bradish and Lorenzen. I'm hoping for Josh Hader at this point. And then lastly, Jason Hayward was the smart pick. But It's hard to say because it's totally possible that the Dodgers just unlocked him and brought him back to what he used to be. That would not surprise me. But given that he was basically just completely, he was like the Trent Grisham of outfielders before Trent Grisham was there. Not to, I mean, I guess somewhat to insult Trent Grisham, but Jason Hayward, 124 WRC plus this year. His last bunch of years, 61, 70. In a shortened 2020 season, 131. So I kind of throw that out. 100, 100, 89, 72, 121. Back in 2015 was the last time he was an above average offensive player, basically. So I would predict that. But then again, it's the Dodgers and he's 33. Not impossible to turn it around then. So maybe you'll figure it out. And also, he's another guy who always had talent through the roof. He just never quite became, a superstar player. He was always just a steady, good player at the beginning of his career. So maybe the Dodgers did that. Maybe they're going to get a solid bat, but decent guy to bet against if you're just a hater like me.
I'm upset, Javi. Jason Hayward should have been one of the first 3 picks taken in this draft. I don't even know.
It should have been, right?
I think we
got scared because it's the Dodgers. I think that's what happened. We got scared because it's the Dodgers and they figured something out.
I'm not gonna lie. I just overlooked Jason Hayward. I just completely forgot him off my research here, Javi. I think
Al. Let me tell you something, Al. Why are you talking about Chris Collinsworth right now?
I don't know. I'd be listening to the BS pod probably too much, and they'd be doing that little bit on there. Yeah, like you said, Hayward literally hasn't been good.
Me too.
Yeah, I love when they do that little thing. But like you said, Hayward literally hasn't been a good offense player in a decade. And I just can't imagine when the Dodgers signed him, we just thought it was a little joke, a little extra depth piece. Maybe he can have a moment or two, but no one really took that signing seriously. And it's the fact that he has an 800 plus OPS. This is literally the best OPS he's had.
The swing is fixed.
Yeah, the swing is fixed. Best OPS since rookie season. Best OPS plus, if you don't count the 2020 year, since his rookie season as well. So you could even say it's maybe his best offensive season since his debut year, which is actually just insane to think about. So I don't know how the Dodgers were able to uncover the gem of Jason Hayward, but I guess they're one of those franchises that could just do that. Some other honorable mentions that I have written down. I did put down some Rays like Josh Lowe, Yandy Diaz. I put Marcell Ozuna down because you never know. He's been a little up and down the last few years in his career. Justin Turner, just because he's old. Can he still continue being the high-level player at his age? I also put Charlie Bourne down, just a couple old boys who should finally hit the wall one of these days. And I even put down your favorite player, Sonny Gray, because I just don't think there's another season where he could be the second best pitcher in the American League. So I think Sonny Gray has to regress at least a little bit heading into next season. Maybe even a Jorge Soler. I also wrote him down here. But that's it for this a little edition of our regression draft, Javi. What'd you think, and where can the listeners find you?
I thought that was a lot of fun, man. I must say, and your boy Ketel Marte just homered as I'm speaking. So shouts to you. Big deal for you.
Hey, now let's wrap it up.
It was good, man. And next week, I'm excited for what we're cooking. We're cooking up some fun. At least I'm pretty sure we'll do this unless something happens. Our superlatives for the Major League season. Ooh, yeah. I'm trying to come up with a bunch of weird categories, so that's why we're waiting on it. But until then, Miller too. So we'll see.
Let's make a shared note. Just drop all this.
Let's make a shared note. Hey, let's make a shared note. Come on, why not? Yeah.
Follow me on Twitter at CreatorThomas24 for their personal account. Look up Locked On Diamondbacks, both Twitter, Instagram for the podcast handle. D-backs up 12-4 at the time of us recording this, and it looks like they're going to stomp their way over the Chicago White Sox for a Game 1 victory. Let's get a couple more and let's head to the playoff, boys. That's it for this edition of the Locked On Diamondbacks, Locked On Padres crossover. Until next week, Javier, Reyes, doses.